imagine this scenario with me, and it's probably easy because I'm pretty sure that you have experienced it before, so you just need to remember it. You are at practice, and unfortunately the last game day or race day or competition day did not go as planned. You didn't perform the way you wanted to, you lost the game, you made mistakes, and everyone is really tense about it. There is like tension in the air, like it's palpable. Like you can tell everyone's on edge and not happy, not content. You're kind of like tiptoeing around each other because you don't want to risk anything, because everyone is really unhappy. And to no one's surprise, practice is also not going too well. Like you're not performing as you know you can, and it's not really fun. You're not really getting into the zone. And all it takes is for someone to crack a joke. Or if you have a good coach, maybe they come up with like a fun activity, a fun game or something to lighten the mood. And even though it feels maybe a bit weird in the beginning, eventually it does relieve everyone from the tension, and it opens the valves to let the pressure go, sort of. And again, to nobody's surprise, afterwards everyone performs better, and you can actually finally focus on training, on rehearsing, on your drills, on all the activities and practices that are on today's plan. And it's sometimes so simple if you hear it and you're like, yeah, but is that all there is to it? Just to crack a joke, just to include some play. And today's episode is exactly about that. I want to talk about playfulness in sports, and I feel that often it is really encouraged and used when coaches work with younger athletes, with kids or maybe teens. And then the older you get, and also the more elite maybe your training gets, the less play is often involved, and everyone is very serious and very streamlined and focused on what needs to be done. And I get that, I understand that, and today's episode is my pledge, sort of, to convince you that playfulness is actually a serious element of training. And why that is exactly what I want to explore with you. So we're going to look a little bit on what playfulness is, why it really matters, like what effect does it have on the body, and then some ways on how we can include it, some strategies. And before we do that, welcome to the Healthy and Aligned podcast. I'm so excited that you decided to be here. My name is Lisa. I am a mindset and innovation coach for athletes and for athletic teams. And on the Healthy and Aligned podcast, I talk about all things mindset related, creativity related, innovation related, like all those topics that can help athletes and their teams to perform better and to perform more sustainably. Because I truly believe that to have a good, sustainable career, maybe creating a legacy with your career, whether that's global or in your local community, doesn't matter. You need to train your mind like you train your body. And there is a lot of focus on physical training, and I want to shift that and include a focus on the mindset that athletes need to have. And we go beyond the winner's mindset that everyone talks about. So today's topic is playfulness and how important it is in the context of athletic performance. So let's do it. What is playfulness? I guess we all have sort of an idea, of what we're talking about, and you have experiences with it. But especially as adults, playfulness is often maybe it's considered as frivolous and not focused, and it's not all about having fun all the time. Life has to be serious, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I really believe that life is supposed to be joyful, life is supposed to be fun, and that joy and fun are also some of the biggest indicators for us to see if we are on our right path, on our, in our living in our purpose pretty much. And why else would we have this life if it wasn't to enjoy it? And maybe that's a bit too philosophical for you, but that's what I truly believe. However, if you don't believe that, that is fine as well. There is actual, like, scientific reasons, if you want, biological reasons, why playfulness is actually something that goes beyond fun and joy and allows athletes to be more successful. So what is it? Playfulness is basically the state of joy, the state of curiosity, being open-minded, and being open for exploration, being open for experimentation, creativity. So when we are in play, we often remove lots of limitations that we have, lots of limiting beliefs that we live with, that we have created in our lives. And we let go of the quote-unquote seriousness of a lot of situations. And I said that, and I want to have like a little asterisk here, because being playful does not mean that you don't take anything serious. It doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you don't listen. It doesn't mean that you don't, pay attention to the importance of something. So it's not indifference or sarcasm or irony or those things. It instead is an injection, maybe, if you want, of energy, an injection of enthusiasm into whatever we're doing. That is, for me, what playfulness is. Make everything a little bit more energetic, a little bit more exciting, So it doesn't mean necessarily that we have to play games all the time. It just means that we approach topics with a little bit more of a lighthearted attitude. And now let's move a bit closer to why it matters. Why does it have an effect on our success? And to explain that, I would like to take a little detour maybe, or a side topic and talk about emotional regulation and nervous system regulation. So I talked about our nervous system in previous episodes. I'm pretty sure I'll talk about it in future episodes, and I also need to talk about it here right now because it's so important. Our nervous system is pretty much the part of our body that dictates how we feel at the moment, like in which state we're in. And I like to explain it with its two ends of the scale, like the two extreme sides. So there is the one side, which is often referred to as the fight or flight mode. I personally think that's a bit too limited, because it's also the mode where we are really like hyped, where we're really activated, where we are able to focus really well. We're really alert. It's where the game mode is, right? So if you're on for the game, that is that part of the nervous system that is activated. So usually it means, in physiological terms, it's a higher heart rate, your muscles are a bit more activated, maybe tense, ready for action. You might be sweating a little. Your senses are heightened. So you see better, you hear better, you feel atmosphere, and we kind of unlock some parts of us that makes us even stronger or even more focused or even faster than we usually are. So that is the one end sort of the spectrum. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have more the surfer dude chill mode part, where we really relax, where we really calm, we let go, we release tension. Our body is allowed to digest, to re-energize, to heal, to recover. So, if you had like a really hard workout session and afterwards you need to recover, that is that mode that you want to be in. And those two are the extremes sort of our nervous system. Both great, both also problematic if we spend too much time in each. And we can move between those extremes, if you will. So it doesn't mean that you're always super chill or you're always super activated. Obviously, we can be in between as well, but it's impossible for both sides to be in their extremes at the same time, right? I cannot be super chill and have an elevated heart rate. I cannot be super relaxed and be ready for action at the same time. We can switch quickly between those modes, but we cannot be in it at the same time. I hope that makes sense. So within this continuum of the nervous system slider, as I like to call it, we can move, right? So right now I am kind of chill and kind of activated. I'm somewhere in the middle because I need to be awake. I need to be alert. I want to be a bit more like turned on to record this podcast, to have my voice more engaging, to have my body activated. So I, use gestures when I talk. Now I'm very conscious about it that I said it. But also I don't want to be super stressed or hyper or anything like that. I also want to feel very comfortable and feel good in my skin and, not be too activated because it's a long podcast as well. I want to, make sure that I manage my energy, and also I feel, for me personally, super high activated podcasters are not my favorite. So there you go. I am somewhere in the middle right now when it comes to my nervous system. As I just quickly mentioned, being too long in the more extreme parts is not really good for us because we need both, right? We need that rest and digest and rejuvenate, recover stage, but we also at times need to be activated, need to be ready for action. And our, let's say, general environment that we all live in as a society, so not just as athletes, but just humans, usually we're much more activated. We're more on that side of the scale where we experience stress, where we experience pressures, overstimulation, and also culturally, hustle is a good thing apparently, and we're always on, kind of. And when you read somewhere or you hear somewhere when people say like, "Ooh, stress is what makes us sick. Stress is the sort of the end of our society," what they refer to is that we're in this continuous cycle of that part of our nervous system, the fight or flight. So we're always activated. Our heart rate is always high, and our body continuously releases stress hormones because that's what keeps us going, right? That's what keeps us alert. However, that also means that our body does not have time to re-energize, does not have time to digest properly. Like the majority in our society has digestive problems, Our bodies don't take the nutrients as it could because it needs to be fast. It doesn't have time to digest in peace, for example. We don't sleep as well because we need to be, to have a good night of sleep, we need to be in that part of our nervous system needs to be activated. Healing, as I said, recovery. So while both are important, and I'm not here to say that fight or flight part of our nervous system is the bad guy and the other one is the good guy. If you are too much on the chill side, that's also not good because you'll eventually become very indifferent. Apathy is something that can happen. You might, and I'm not saying that's the only way, there's the disclaimer, but you might have a tendency towards depression or anxiety, where you go, actually not anxiety, depression, where you really sink into a hole. So that could be too much on this other end of it. So again, we need both of it to have a good and enjoyable life. However, in general, we're much more activated than we should be. And now let me take it to the athletes. Athletes have a very interesting context because in my previous life, I worked a lot with corporates, and in corporate, we operate in a high stress environment. There's always high pressure, there's always high stress, there's continuous controlling and management, and it's a lot. So the stress levels are high all the time, and you need to learn how to deal with that and how to find strategies for yourself to compensate. Now, when we look at athletes, there's also a lot of stress, but often it peaks around the competition time, right? So it's like how do you call it? It's like little mountains, sort of, if you look at it, right? So you train, you prepare for competition, and the stress peaks. It's like high stress situation when you compete. So it's really the climax of it. And afterwards, often there is like a void, and you just like, you drop down, and you move into a whole sort of, I think void is a very good word. And then again, you start preparing for the next peak, and then it drops again. So it has a very different pattern. We need to be able to navigate these little hills, these mountains, the Alps, that we cross on game day, on competition day. So now let me kind of get back to this episode's main cast, playfulness. Why do I talk so much about the nervous system when I actually am here to talk about playfulness? Because play is a tool for you to regulate your nervous system. And it's an amazing tool for that, because if you are highly stressed, if you're like super antsy and activated and overstimulated, play is a sign to your body that you are safe, that you are okay. There is no need to react with fight or flight, to release that crazy amount of cortisol, which is that stress hormone, but that you can actually relax a little. You don't need to be on high alert all the time, right? And play allows you to release the tension of the moment. That's why we call it often comedic relief, right? When something is really like difficult, really like sad or tragic or whatever, and then someone makes a joke, we laugh more than we should. Like, maybe it wasn't even that funny, but we crack up, and we laugh, like belly laughs, and it's just a release of pressure. It's a release of tension to get out of this extreme part of our nervous system and allow ourselves to move a little bit closer to the chill side, right? So we can use this idea of comedic relief with play as well. So there are great elite athletes who use play to do exactly that. I think Usain Bolt, when he warms up he used to warm up for his races, he used to just, make jokes and have like funny warm-up exercises. I know Serena Williams does it in her training sessions. The closer the competition, like the match is, she makes sure that she includes like fun games into her training to make sure that she stays engaged, that she doesn't get too stressed, too tense, and too intense maybe about it, but that she can, relax and have fun while doing it. So play allows us to feel safe. And that's an important concept to understand. Play allows us to be safe. So that also allows us to maybe experiment with something and fail, right? Because we're not under that scrutiny, and it's obvious. It's play, right? It's not competition or anything. It's for funsies what we're doing right now. So messing up or trying something that doesn't work doesn't really matter, because nothing's at stake here. And that's another really important aspect of playfulness. It takes away the perceived impact of what we do. So if you're following your training plan to a T, and obviously without playfulness, let's say, and you try something and you mess up, you can, always like explain it to yourself, but it feels like you just messed up and you didn't do well, and you maybe ruined the entire training session, and now you're not, on course anymore in those things. However, if you include play sessions sort of in your training plan, that is the moment when you feel psychological safety to mess up, because nothing depends on it, right? This is just play. And it allows you to try new things. It allows you to tweak a process without the fear of losing progress. And I think that is so important, especially when it comes to creative athletes, to include more innovation in the way that we show up as athletes, and having that sort of cover of play to experiment is priceless in this context. So you let go of the fear of judgment, you let go of the fear of failure when you play. And you are maybe more adventurous, maybe you are bolder when you do it. Is that a word, bolder? More bold? Well, you are more courageous when you play, because nothing's at stake. And that's super important. I think the last one, I mentioned it earlier, is the fact that joy is a huge element of playfulness, right? Like, even as adults, we want to feel good about ourselves. And doing that, again, allows us to be more relaxed. So it's a regulator for our nervous system. It's an emotional regulator. We release hormones that make us feel good when we play. We are more likely to connect with other people when we play. It's often a social activity. And joy is also a great motivator. If you listen to my previous episode on motivation, you know that the key to motivation is the emotional intensity that we connect with the thing that we want to achieve, right? So the energy that we have towards our goals, towards our destination with whatever we're working on. And joy is an incredibly powerful emotion, and it comes with a great intensity, let's say. So having joy attached to the process of training, to the process of rehearsing, of practicing, allows us to be more motivated, because it increases the dial of our motivation. It keeps us more engaged. And it reduces the resistance that we have to whatever we're doing. And resistance is basically the fear that we have about the discomfort or the potential danger that is connected to achieving our goals, right? So when we feel that a session will be super draining, super boring, super exhausting, the resistance is much bigger. If we inject some play to it, play allows us to be more joyful, allows us to be more enthusiastic, and it doesn't feel, or we don't anticipate the dread of the workout, but we kind of anticipate the fun of the workout. So again, resistance is reduced. That's why play is important. That's why it matters. So nervous system regulation, super, super important, and play is a great tool to do that. What else did I say? The experimentation without fear, without being scared that we mess up, but being open for creativity, being open for innovation. And the third one, I think those are the main ones, is the joy as an important emotion for motivation, for moving forward, for keeping engaged, and reducing resistance when it comes to that. So I think those 3 points are the main points, at least that I identified. There's probably so much more, especially like community related, but those are the 3 that I wanted to share today with you. And I hope that you understood how these things have a tangible effect on your training, on your physical performance. So let's talk about how we can use play in our training. Like, what are like concrete strategies that we can use to be more playful in practice? The first one is sort of an obvious one, I think, so, but I need to say it anyways. It's just make training more fun. Always ask yourself the question, how could I make this more fun? And it doesn't mean necessarily that an activity is a game. It can mean that. If you can turn a workout into a game, that's a great way to make it more playful. But it could also be maybe turn on some music that is upbeat and fun, or maybe makes you laugh because it's music from your childhood, or like some stupid songs or whatever, like it doesn't have to be all games necessarily. So add maybe small creative challenges to your drills, or I don't know, use costumes. I have no idea what you can come up with, but I'm pretty sure that you'll be very, very creative when you ask yourself, how can I make this more fun? Maybe it's about using different angles than you did before when you practice a specific shoot. Maybe it's doing it on your head. Maybe it's doing it, with your backs. I have no idea. But just try and add an element of fun as often as you can. And even if it's just in your mind, even if you just imagine the ball that you're throwing to be a watermelon, or to be glowing and pulsating and changing colors every time someone touches it, or whatever. Like, it's more about the mindset that you bring to it than the actual activity. So ask yourself the question, how can I make this more fun? And that leads to this mindset shift over time. It will allow you to see things with more lightheartedness and less seriousness all the time. And it allows you to be also more curious, because you'll be open towards other people's approach to things, for example. And you can ask yourself, like, oh, what can I learn from this situation and make it more fun? Like, how can why not pretend today that I'm not a basketball player, but I'm a ski jumper? Like, how would I approach my training, and how could I make it fun? Like, there's so many different ways for you to do it. You can start laughing at your mistakes and really maybe see it as a blooper. I don't know, if you're anything like me, I like to watch blooper reels of TV shows or movies on YouTube. It just cracks me up sometimes what happens, and it's just really funny. And those are mistakes. Some of them are quite costly as well, but looking at it as a blooper, it kind of gives this lightheartedness, and everyone kind of has to laugh about it. So that would be a mindset shift I can recommend for you as well. So whenever you mess up, you miss the goal, you miss the hoop, or you fall, you trip, whatever, just see it as a blooper, and in your mind create your own blooper reel for that game. Like, many important movies that have costs, I don't know, billions, I don't know, millions at least, they have blooper reels. Like, the best actors, the best stunt people, they all make mistakes. So it's fine to make mistakes and just, see it with a little bit more lightheartedness and not with tension and seriousness. Celebrating the process is often very fun as well. And you could come up with like funny celebrations, again, celebrating maybe some mistakes, or celebrating funny aspects of your game, of your practice, and maybe, bring a party hat. I have no idea. Bring balloons. Anything that you can do to bring in lightheartedness in this context will be helpful. Now, if you're a coach, the same applies. So what can you do to make practice more fun? Can you turn a drill into a game, into a mini competition or a challenge? Would you maybe want to bring some funny rewards or awards for someone? Maybe you do want to create that blooper reel that I talked about earlier and allow the athletes in your team to make mistakes. Obviously it's not about encouraging to make mistakes necessarily, and you want them to mess up, even though now I say that would actually be a really fun exercise and a fun activity as well, to do everything wrong. Like, what do you need to do to really mess up, which could lead to new ideas and new innovations as well, by the way. So that is definitely one of the biggest assignments that I would give coaches, is how can you make practice fun? Again, think music, think little gifts or awards, think costumes, think props, think colors, whatever you can come up with. Important for playfulness, especially within teams, is the spirit of the team. So playfulness is very much a culture shaper. It allows people to be more at ease with each other. If you played together, you can also work together. I have worked with people, I'm not sure I can play, with them. That was a weird sentence, you know what I mean? And I feel that teams who have this atmosphere of playfulness, they also have a different bond between each other. And we all know that this bond is crucial then when it comes to the actual game, to the actual competition, because they have a different understanding of each other. They have a different level of trust, different communication with each other. And play is a beautiful tool to build this trust, to build this communication. And we've seen it countless times, right? Especially when it comes to international competitions where teams also travel a lot, or like there was a world championship. And I remember, for example, the German soccer national team, there used to be one particular player, part of the team, who unfortunately didn't show up as often during the competitions. Like, he wasn't put out on the field as often, but he was always part of the team because he's a jokester, he's a fun guy, he is the one that lightens the atmosphere. And he was such an important part of this team that allowed them to play lightheartedly and have fun playing and enjoy themselves, even though maybe, and I don't want to judge his athletic capabilities. I mean, he was a great player, no question about it. However, he wasn't, put on the field as often. Nevertheless, no one wanted to travel without him or wanted to miss him. He was integral to the team. So keep that in mind when you build your teams as coaches as well. And the last aspect that I have for coaches is, it kind of starts with you. It's not only about making those plans, including those games, or having the right players, having the jokesters on the team. It's also about you modeling this playfulness, about you laughing with them, you showing up in a fun way, you cracking the jokes, if that is your thing. Like, don't force yourself to be someone you're not, like inauthenticity. But find your flavor of play. Find your way of being playful as a coach as well. And make sure that you have fun coaching. Ask yourself, how can I make my job more fun? And inevitably, it will have a positive and more playful effect on the players as well. Okay, that is what I wanted to share about playfulness. I really enjoy talking about these topics. I hope that you maybe got a new insight today, learned something new, or heard something that triggered another thought. And I'm really curious about what you think, how you use playfulness in your practice. If you do it at all, let me know. I'm really curious. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe to my podcast or my channel, wherever you are consuming this content. And next week, we have a super exciting topic, which is the duality of innovation and optimization, and how teams can learn how to deal with both of them, because they seem like opposites to each other, and in a way they are. But it's important for teams to be able to optimize, to standardize, to streamline, and at the same time to innovate, to be creative, to explore and to experiment. So this duality is what we're going to talk about next week. I'm really excited about that episode. I love that topic. And until then, I wish you a beautiful rest of your day.